The vault doors opened with a hiss that echoed through the chamber like a final breath. Queen Elena stepped inside, her boots clicking against metal that predated most civilizations in the known galaxy. The air tasted old here, preserved by stasis fields that had held for longer than human recorded history. Around her, representatives from 47 species stood in a semicircle, their various forms casting strange shadows under the blue emergency lighting. At the center of the room, suspended in a containment field, floated a crystal no larger than a human fist. Its surface crawled with symbols that seemed to shift when observed directly, as if the language itself resisted comprehension. Elena had seen the reports. Every linguistic expert the council could summon had tried and failed to decode it. The Vrex had applied probability matrices. The Keflin hive mind had attempted pattern synchronization. The ancient Mothar, whose civilization spanned 12,000 years, had consulted their oldest archives and found nothing. Your Majesty, Ambassador Krelveth's translator chip rendered his clicking mandibles into flat, emotionless words. We appreciate humanity's response to our request, but given the failures of species far more experienced in xenolinguistics, we question whether a human can succeed where you've all failed. Elena kept her voice level. Diplomatic, she'd dealt with Krelvoth's condescension before. The Vrex ambassador had never quite accepted humanity's rapid rise from primitive world to council member in less than 2 centuries. I merely suggest that hope should not override realism. Elena turned to face him fully. Then why invite us at all? The chamber fell silent. It was Ambassador Ythsera who finally spoke, her crystalline form chiming softly. Because, Your Majesty, we are desperate. The crystal was discovered in the Threshold Nebula, in a vault that our best engineers estimate was sealed 50,000 years ago. The civilization that created it left no other trace. No ruins, no debris. Nothing but this. She gestured toward the floating crystal. And our sensors have detected unusual energy signatures in that region. Signatures that match partial fragments we've managed to extract from the crystal's outer data layers. What kind of signatures? Warning signals, distress calls, and one word that translates across every language database we possess. Ythesra's chimes took on a discordant note. Extinction. Elena felt the weight of those words settle over the chamber. Where's Dr. Webb? In the analysis chamber, Ythsera said. He's been studying the preliminary scans for the past 6 hours. Elena found Marcus hunched over a holographic display, his fingers dancing through streams of data that would have overwhelmed most minds. Marcus Webb had never been an easy man to work with. Brilliant, obsessive, and utterly convinced that human linguistic evolution held keys that other species overlooked. The council had rejected his theories for years. Now they needed him. Marcus. He didn't look up. The symbols aren't random. They're not even particularly alien. The council's experts disagree. The council's experts are looking at this through the wrong lens. He finally met her eyes, and Elena saw something in his expression that unsettled her. Not excitement. Fear. Your Majesty, I need access to restricted human historical databases. Everything we have on proto-languages, archaeological linguistic fragments, anything from before the written record. That's classified material, Marcus. Some of it touches on theories that could destabilize. I don't care about politics right now. His voice sharpened. Those symbols out there? I've seen variations of them before. In my research on pre-agricultural human communication patterns that shouldn't exist because they predate the development of complex language by our current understanding. Elena felt cold. That's impossible. That's what I thought too. But look at this. He pulled up a comparison display. On one side, symbols from the crystal. On the other, reconstructed markings from controversial archaeological sites on Earth that mainstream science had dismissed as natural formations. The similarities were undeniable. If you're suggesting what I think you're suggesting, I'm not suggesting anything yet, but I need those databases. Now, Elena made the call. 20 minutes later, Marcus had access to humanity's most closely guarded historical records, files that suggested human civilization might be far older than anyone wanted to admit. She watched him work, his fingers trembling slightly as he cross-referenced symbol after symbol. The other council members filtered in over the next hour, drawn by curiosity or skepticism or both. Krelvoth positioned himself where he could observe Marcus's every move, his mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement or contempt. "The human wastes time with his own species' primitive markings," he muttered to his aide, but his translator picked it up and broadcast it across the chamber. Marcus didn't react. His focus had narrowed to a point that Elena recognized from his academic years. He was close to something. She could see it in the way his breath had quickened, the way his hands had stopped trembling and moved with sudden certainty. "There," he whispered. Then louder, "There! Oh God, there it is!" "What have you found?" Ythsera moved closer, her crystalline form refracting the display's light into rainbow patterns. Marcus stood slowly, like a man who just discovered he was standing on the edge of a cliff. "It's not an alien language," he said quietly. "It's human." The chamber erupted. Krelvoth's clicking became a harsh rattle. Several ambassadors began speaking at once, their translators creating a cacophony of denial and confusion. Elena raised her hand for silence, but it took nearly a minute for order to return. "Explain," she commanded. Marcus pulled up his analysis, hands shaking again but for different reasons now. The grammatical structure, the symbol evolution patterns, the way concepts are nested within concepts, it all matches theoretical models of proto-human language development, but not proto-human from 10,000 years ago. This is older, much older. He paused, swallowing hard. The crystal's dating is accurate. This language is 50,000 years old, and it's human. Impossible, Krelvoth said flatly. Humanity achieved space travel 200 years ago. You were a primitive species until we became a spacefaring species again, Marcus interrupted. That's what this is telling us. Humans didn't originate on Earth, or we did. But we left. We reached the stars 50,000 years ago, and something happened. Something terrible enough that we forgot everything. Forgot the language, the technology, the fact that we'd ever been more than hunter-gatherers on a single world. The silence that followed was absolute. Elena stared at the crystal, at the symbols that suddenly felt like looking into a mirror that showed a reflection from before time began. "Can you translate it?" she asked. "I think so. The structure is there. It's like finding the Rosetta Stone, except the Rosetta Stone is written in the language of your ancestors who you didn't know existed." Marcus turned back to his displays. "Give me time. Time may be something we don't have," Ythsera said softly. "The energy signatures in the Threshold Nebula are growing stronger. Our long-range sensors detected a new reading 3 hours ago. Something is moving. Something massive." Marcus froze. "What kind of massive?" "Planet-sized, possibly larger, and it's heading toward the inner systems." "Then I need to work faster." Marcus's fingers flew across the holographic interface. "Your Majesty, I need linguistic support. Anyone with experience in dead languages, pattern recognition, anything that might help cross-reference what I'm finding." Elena sent the calls. Within the hour, 6 more human linguists had joined Marcus via quantum link, their holographic forms surrounding the crystal's data like scholars hunched over an ancient manuscript. The council members watched in silence as humanity worked to decode the message their ancestors had left buried in time. The breakthrough came 16 hours later. Marcus had barely slept, sustained by stimulants and the kind of obsessive focus that had made him both renowned and difficult. His team had managed to establish core vocabulary, grammatical rules, contextual frameworks. The language had evolved differently than modern human languages, but the roots were undeniable. "I've got something," Marcus said, his voice hoarse. "The opening sequence. It's not a greeting, it's a warning." He pulled up the translation, and Elena read the words that appeared in modern English, rendered from a language that predated history. "To those who remember, or those who have forgotten, the silence comes again. It feeds. It has always fed. We fought for 300 cycles of the great sun. We lost." The chamber had filled again, ambassadors roused from sleep by the news of progress. They read the translated words with growing horror. "What is the silence?" Ythsera asked. Marcus continued translating, his team feeding him contextual data as they worked through the crystal's deeper layers. "It's a designation. The ancient humans couldn't describe what it was, only what it did. It consumed civilizations, not just destroyed them, consumed them. Technology, culture, biological matter. Everything. It would arrive at a system, and within weeks, nothing would remain except empty worlds scrubbed clean. How did they fight something like that? They didn't. Not successfully. Marcus pulled up the next section of text. But they learned something. They discovered that the silence operates in cycles. It emerges from deep space, feeds on civilizations that have reached a certain level of technological advancement, then retreats to wherever it comes from. The cycle takes approximately 50,000 years. The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. We're at that level now, all of us. Yes, Marcus's face was pale. And according to this, the silence can detect spacefaring civilizations. Once a species reaches faster than light travel, they become visible to it, like lighting a beacon in the dark. Krelvoth's mandibles clattered. Then every species in this council is at risk. Every spacefaring species in the galaxy is at risk, Marcus corrected. The ancient humans estimated that during their war, the silence consumed over 60 civilizations across multiple spiral arms. They were the last to fall. Then how did humanity survive? Elena asked the question that everyone was thinking. Marcus worked through more of the text, his team coordinating in rapid bursts of communication. The translation came together piece by piece, revealing a story that redefined everything humanity thought it knew about itself. The ancient humans had fought desperately, using weapons and strategies that their descendants had forgotten. They'd lost world after world, retreating through the galaxy until only a handful of systems remained. And then, in their final stronghold, they'd discovered something, a weakness. The silence wasn't invincible. It's vulnerable to a specific frequency, Marcus read, his voice tight. A harmonic resonance that disrupts its cohesion. The ancient humans found it by accident when one of their experimental weapons misfired. They saw the silence retreat just for a moment, just long enough to give them hope. Did they deploy it? Ysera leaned forward. They tried, but they ran out of time. The silence adapted too quickly, developed countermeasures. Marcus pulled up the next section and his face went slack. Oh, God! Elena moved to his side. They made a choice. The last human fleet, maybe 300 ships, made a final stand at a world they called Haven. They knew they couldn't win, but they could leave something behind. They encoded everything they'd learned into these crystals and scattered them across the galaxy in vaults designed to survive for exactly 50,000 years. And then he stopped, his voice breaking. Then what? Then they evacuated everyone they could to a primitive world on the galaxy's edge. A world with the right conditions for human life. They stripped the people of all technology, all records, everything that might draw the silence's attention. They made them forget. Marcus looked up at Elena. They sent them to Earth. The chamber erupted again, but Elena barely heard it. She was staring at the crystal, at the message her ancestors had left, at the sacrifice they'd made to give humanity, give all of them, a chance to survive. The technical specifications, she said sharply. For the frequency weapon, are they in there? Marcus nodded. They're encrypted in the deeper layers. My team is working on. Alarms shrieked through the vault. Red emergency lighting flooded the chamber, turning everything the color of blood. Ambassador Ysera's form blazed with transmitted data from her ship. It's here, she said, her chimes now a discordant scream. The silence. It's entered the outer system. Elena's command link activated, flooding her with reports from Human Fleet Command. What she heard made her blood freeze. The thing approaching wasn't a ship. It wasn't even a structure in any conventional sense. It was an absence, a hole in space where matter and energy went to die. Sensors couldn't get a clear reading because there was nothing to read. It simply was a vast darkness, spreading across the system like a stain. How long until it reaches the inhabited worlds? She asked. At current speed, 18 hours. But Your Majesty, it's not alone. Our scouts are detecting smaller manifestations. Dozens of them. They're moving to block all exit vectors from the system. Marcus was already back at his console, his team working frantically. I need more time. The encryption is complex, multi-layered. They didn't want this information falling into the wrong hands. We don't have time, Krelvoth said. His usual condescension had vanished, replaced by naked fear. "We should evacuate while we still can." "Evacuate where?" Yathesera's chimes were harsh. "You heard the human. The silence hunts spacefaring civilizations. If we run, it follows. If we scatter, it hunts us down one by one. Then we fight. With what? We don't understand what this thing is, let alone how to harm it." Elena made a decision. All council ships will remain in system. We coordinate our defenses, buy Marcus and his team as much time as possible. Kralvoth, your people have the most advanced weapons platforms. I need them positioned at the system's heliopause. For a moment, she thought he would refuse. Then his mandibles clicked in what might have been respect. "Consider it done." The next 12 hours blurred together in a chaos of preparation and growing dread. The Council fleet, over 3,000 ships representing 47 different species, took up defensive positions. Elena coordinated from the vault, unwilling to leave while Marcus worked. She watched through tactical displays as the silence advanced. It moved slowly, almost casually, as if it knew resistance was futile. The smaller manifestations had formed a perimeter around the system, cutting off any escape. They pulsed with a darkness that seemed to absorb light itself. "First contact in 30 minutes, her tactical officer reported. "Kralvoth's ships are ready to engage." Marcus hadn't looked up from his work in hours. His team had narrowed the focus to the crystal's core, where the weapon specifications were encoded, but the encryption was fighting them at every step, as if the ancient humans had wanted to be absolutely certain that only their descendants could unlock it. "Marcus," Elena said quietly, "whatever happens, you need to know." "I'm going to break this," he interrupted. "I have to. They left this for us, for humanity. Our ancestors sacrificed everything so we'd have this chance. I'm not going to let them down." The first energy bloom lit up the tactical display. Kralvoth's ships had opened fire, pouring enough destructive power to crack a moon into the silence. For a moment, Elena felt hope. The weapons were hitting. The energy readings were off the scale. Surely nothing could withstand. The silence didn't slow. It didn't even seem to notice. The weapon's fire simply vanished into it, absorbed, as if they were nothing more than rain falling into an ocean. "It's not working." Kralvoth's voice came through, tight with panic. "Nothing's working. It's like we're shooting at empty space." More ships engaged. The Kethlan deployed their molecular disruptors. The Yathesera's people used gravity weapons that could tear apart asteroids. The humans added their own firepower, railguns, and plasma cannons that had never failed before. All of it useless. The silence reached the first defensive line and flowed over it like water. Ships vanished. Not destroyed in explosions or broken apart, just gone. Erased. Elena watched dozens of vessels disappear from her tactical display, each one representing hundreds or thousands of lives. "Fall back to secondary positions," she ordered, fighting to keep her voice steady. "All ships retreat to—" "I've got it!" Marcus's shout cut through the chaos. "The encryption just broke." "I have the specifications." Elena was at his side in seconds. "Can we build it?" "We don't have to build it. That's the genius of it. The frequency can be generated by modulating standard faster-than-light drives. Every ship in this fleet can become a weapon." His fingers flew across the console, sending the data to every vessel in the system. "But there's a problem. The effect is cumulative. We need enough ships generating the frequencies simultaneously. And once we start, we can't stop. The resonance cascade has to reach critical mass, or it won't work." "How many ships?" Marcus looked at her and she saw the terrible answer in his eyes before he spoke. "All of them. And they have to maintain the frequency for at least 3 minutes. The silence will target them first once it realizes what's happening. They'll be defenseless." Elena activated her fleet-wide channel. "All human vessels. This is Queen Elena. I'm transmitting technical specifications for a weapon. Our ancestors, the first humans who traveled the stars, discovered how to hurt what we're facing. But it requires every ship to commit completely. No weapons, no shields, just the frequency. For 3 minutes you'll be sitting targets." She paused, looking at Marcus, at the crystal that had traveled across 50,000 years to give him this moment. Our ancestors gave up everything so we could be here. They forgot who they were, became primitive, spent 50,000 years climbing back to the stars. Also, we'd have this chance. I won't order you to do this, but I'm asking. As your queen, as a human, as someone who refuses to let our species die twice. The responses came in immediately. Every human ship confirmed. More than that, the other species began confirming too. Provoth's voice came through, stripped of all pretense. If the humans can sacrifice for this, so can the Vrex. We stand with you. One by one, the Council species pledged their ships, 3,000 vessels, representing dozens of civilizations, all choosing to trust in a weapon designed by a species that had been dead for 50 millennia. Synchronize your drives, Marcus. Broadcast the instructions. On my mark, begin the frequency modulation. Do not stop no matter what happens. The resonance has to build. The silence was close now. It had consumed the outer defensive lines and was accelerating, as if sensing what was about to happen. The smaller manifestations were converging, forming a wall of darkness between the fleet and any chance of escape. Mark. Every ship in the system began to pulse. This not with light or sound, but with something deeper, a vibration that existed in the fundamental fabric of space itself. Elena felt it through the vault's hull, a thrumming that seemed to resonate in her bones. The silence reacted instantly. The smaller manifestations surged forward, moving faster than they had before. Ships began disappearing in groups now, erased by the spreading darkness. The tactical display became a nightmare of vanishing friendly signals. "Hold the frequency," Marcus shouted into the calm. "We're at 20% resonance. We need more time." More ships died. Elena watched helplessly as hundreds of lives vanished. She wanted to order them to defend themselves, to break formation and fight, but she knew that would doom them all. 40%. The resonance is building. Keep it steady. The silence had reached the inner formations. It was close enough now that Elena could see it through the vault's observation ports, a vast darkness that seemed to drink in the light of nearby stars. It moved like a living thing, flowing and pulsing, and in its depths she thought she could see shapes, worlds it had consumed, civilizations it had erased, 50,000 years of death. 60%. It's working. I can see the resonance pattern forming. Just a little longer. The darkness was everywhere now. Ships were dying by the dozens, their crews making the ultimate sacrifice. Elena gripped the console so hard her knuckles went white. She wanted to look away but forced herself to watch. These people were dying because she'd asked them to. The least she could do was witness it. 80%, the silence is starting to destabilize. I can see it on the sensors. Its cohesion is breaking down. Keep going. The darkness began to pulse, its movements becoming erratic. For the first time, it seemed to be in pain. The smaller manifestations started to fragment, breaking apart into wisps that dissipated like smoke. 95%. Almost there. Don't stop now. The main body of the silence convulsed. The shapes in its depths became visible. Cities and ships and beings that had been consumed across millennia, all of them flickering in and out of existence. Elena realized with horror that they weren't dead. They were trapped, held in some kind of stasis, aware but helpless. 100%. Critical resonance achieved! The darkness screamed. Elena didn't hear it with her ears, but felt it in her mind, a sound like reality itself tearing apart. The silence was fragmenting, its vast body breaking into pieces that dissolved into nothing. The shapes it had held vanished too, released at last into whatever waited beyond death. For a moment, space itself seemed to shudder. Then the silence was gone, leaving behind only empty void where it had been. The fleet hung in silence, fewer than half the ships that had started the battle. Elena's tactical display showed the losses. Over 1,500 vessels, perhaps 500,000 lives. The price of victory. Marcus slumped in his chair, exhausted. It's gone. The resonance cascade destroyed its cohesion. It can't reform, not in this region of space. Maybe not ever. The other manifestations? Gone with it. They were all part of the same entity. He looked up at her, tears streaming down his face. We did it. They did it. Our ancestors gave us the key, and we used it. Elena activated the fleet-wide channel one more time. Her voice was hoarse. raw with emotion. To all ships, to all species who fought here today, we won. The silence is gone. Humanity's ancestors left us a gift across 50,000 years, and together we proved worthy of it. She paused, thinking of all those who had died, all those who had chosen to trust in a weapon from the ancient past. We will remember every ship that fell, every life given. We will remember, and we will honor them, because they didn't just save us. They saved the future. In the days that followed, as the fleet began recovery operations and the council reconvened to process what had happened, Marcus and his team continued working on the crystal. There were more messages, more information. The ancient humans had left detailed records of their civilization, their technology, their culture. It would take years to fully translate everything. But one message Marcus found in the crystal's deepest layers, encrypted beyond all the others, seemed meant specifically for whoever finally unlocked it. Elena read it standing in the vault, her hand resting on the crystal's containment field. If you are reading this, then you survived. You remembered, or you relearned. Either way, you are worthy of the name human. We gave up everything, our ships, our knowledge, our very identity, because we believed that someday our children's children's children would grow strong enough to face what we could not. We were right. You stand where we fell. You succeeded where we failed. The silence is broken, and the galaxy is safe. For now, we cannot know, but we can hope, and hope, in the end, is the most human thing of all. Remember us. Remember what we sacrificed. But more importantly, remember what you achieved. You are humanity. You always were. You always will be. Make us proud. Elena closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 50,000 years of history settling over her. Humanity hadn't begun 200 years ago when they'd first left Earth. They'd begun long before, in the depths of time, as warriors and explorers and survivors who'd given up everything so their species could have a second chance. And that second chance had just saved the galaxy. Marcus came to stand beside her. What happens now? Elena looked at the crystal, at the gift from the past that had shaped the future. Now we rebuild. We honor the dead. And we make sure that if the silence ever returns, we'll be ready. Our ancestors fought for 300 years and still left us the key to victory. The least we can do is be prepared to use it again. And the truth about human origins, 35 variables about what we were, we tell everyone. All of it. Humanity didn't crawl out of caves and reach for the stars. We fell from them and climbed back. That's a story worth knowing. She turned from the crystal and walked toward the vault doors. Behind her, the ancient message glowed softly in its containment field, a light that had crossed the void of time to find its children and lead them home. Outside the vault, the stars waited. The same stars that humanity had sailed 50,000 years ago, that they'd been forced to forget, that they'd fought to reach again. They looked different now. Not just points of light in an endless dark, but proof that even in the face of extinction, even when everything seemed lost, humanity could survive. They'd done it before, they'd do it again. For as long as stars burned and ships sailed between them, humanity would endure. That was the true message of the crystal. Not just the weapon, not just the warning, but the promise that no matter how far they fell, no matter how much they forgot, humans always found their way back to the stars. And this time, they would never forget again.